All right, boys. We're going to a building today. We need to search a spot where the women of the night like to gather. You know what to do. It's not your first time. Get ready. I know we're not robbing a bank, but someone has to do this. Max sighed heavily and grabbed his head. Hey, Max, if it's too much, tell the captain. He'll understand and put someone else in charge. Walter, Max's partner, said as soon as the captain closed the door, I'm fine. My son's sick and was upset all night. Melisa and I hardly slept. You mean this has nothing to do with Natalie? Walter insisted. No, it doesn't, Max responded, a bit frustrated. He was used to catching sympathetic looks from his coworkers and hearing their caring how are yous. It had been a bit over a year since his oldest daughter went missing. Max had to see a lot at his work, and now, when he knew nothing about where his daughter was, the worst ideas came to mind, and he saw the most horrible things. In addition, his hope that she was still alive waned with each passing day. When it had gotten dark, Max and his partner changed into civilian clothes and went to the building. Walter was young and had been a cop for just a year. His psyche was still fragile, so Max, as the older partner, prepared him. I'll do the talking. You can stay in the car, he told Walter after parking where he needed to. There were a couple of girls standing in high heels, fishnet stockings, and miniskirts near the curb. One was about 40, and the other was as old as Max's daughter. Max sadly wondered what pushed this young woman, who was still so young, to be a prostitute. He also thought that his daughter might be standing somewhere just like her. Their partners came back later and brought a couple of girls with them. They needed to interrogate them, and Max took the older one. She was experienced, insolent, cocky, and brash. She sassed Max, snapped at him, told him proper jokes, and insulted him, but she couldn't make him flinch. Until she took off her jacket, and he saw a pendant around her neck. Where'd you get that? He said, pointing to it. It's mine, don't touch it, she snapped back. Max remembered it well. It was unique and made personally to order by his wife, Melanie. They'd been dating for a few months. Max loved her but wasn't rushing to marry. One day he saw that she had bruises on her arms. Her father was an alcoholic and had drunken himself silly before starting to rub her arms. Max proposed that day to get her away from him as soon as possible. They got married and lived at Max's place. She loved flowers, and he brought her new ones every day. One day she said, I love flowers, but it's better when they grow in the garden or in pots, so everyone can appreciate them. When Melanie gave birth to their daughter Natalie, Max gave his wife a gold flower pendant that was made to order. One day, Melanie's grandmother died, and she wanted to go to the funeral. They left Natalie with Max's aunt Elizabeth and set out. It was a long road. Max didn't want to stay overnight and said if they hurried, they could be home before dark. So they did. They had already driven most of the way, and it was dark. Max remembered a violent jolt. A truck had ran into their car. The truck was speeding and drove into oncoming traffic. The truck hit the driver's side. Melanie died before the ambulance arrived. Max only had a few broken bones and a concussion. His guilt wouldn't leave him alone. It was he who didn't want to stay overnight. He who was rushing home. He wanted to die. But there was one thing that kept him alive. His daughter. She had no one else. Elizabeth helped Max raise her, and Max dove headfirst into work to deaden the pain and guilt. He spent all his time there, including overtime and weekend shifts. He spent hardly any time with his daughter and regretted that now. Years went by. One morning, Max found his aunt was dead. Elizabeth had been like Natalie's mother, so she took her death hard. Max and Natalie had a strained relationship. She was 14, a hard age, and Max's lack of experience talking to her left its mark. When Natalie learned how her mother died at Elizabeth's funeral, it was the last straw. She knew her mom had died in a car crash, but she didn't know Max was driving. Melanie's father was drunk again and blamed Max for his daughter's death right in front of Natalie. After that, Max and Natalie's already rough relationship got rougher. She skipped school, spent her evenings who knows where, came home late, and slammed her door whenever he tried to talk to her. Then Max decided to get married. He met Melisa coincidentally. Some thug wanted to snatch her purse and Max was walking by. Then he walked her home. While talking, Max learned she was late at work because she didn't want to go home. "Do you have problems at home?" Max asked. "No, it's just lonely," she said. They met again after that, and then again. Max realized he loved Melisa, even though he didn't believe he could love again. A few months later, Max proposed. They got married, and she moved into his home. Natalie treated her harshly. No matter how hard Melisa tried to form a relationship, it only got worse. And Melisa didn't let Max yell at her. She said Natalie just needed time and everything would work out. When Melisa said she was pregnant, Natalie got hysterical and didn't even come home that night. She had just turned 15. Max learned she had run off with a boy named George. His parents said that it wasn't the first time and he'd be back in a week or two. George did come back 2 weeks later, but not with Natalie. He said she got hysterical and walked into the road. There was nothing after that. Max hadn't heard about his daughter for over a year. Now this prostitute was in front of him with the pendant that Max gave his daughter after his wife's death. "Where did you get it? Don't lie or you'll regret it!" She realized from his face that he wasn't kidding and said she took it from a young girl at the brothel. "Brothel? Where is it?" After getting the address, Max convinced his captain to raid it. After confirming details with his sources, the captain agreed. The operation began. When the police busted in, Max was only concerned with looking for a familiar face. "Max, come here," he heard his partner say. There was a girl sitting in the corner of a room. It was Natalie. "Natalie, my dear," Max said and ran to her. "Daddy, it's you. Get me out of here, please." Max held her close and didn't let go. She cried and asked for forgiveness. That day she left George, she decided to come home. She walked along the road when a car stopped in front of her. She got in and hoped they'd take her home. She remembered there were 2 men in the car who sprayed something in her face. And then she woke up here. They called it a hotel. "Daddy, they made me. This year felt like eternity. I thought I'd never get out." "You're my daughter and I love you. Don't worry, you're safe. Everything will be fine. You'll see," he said. Natalie needed extensive therapy before she could return to living normally. She got really close to Max and Melissa's son, her little brother. It was only now that she realized it was a real family, and it was wonderful that she had them.